What's the best exercise to run faster, jump higher? These are all common questions we get in the world of athletic development. However, it's important to understand what the role of strength training is when it comes to athletic performance. The easiest way to describe this is through Bondarchuk's classification of exercise selection. Basically, with Bondarchuk, what he came up with was 3 categories of exercises. The first being general exercises, the second being specific exercises, and the final being the actual competition exercise itself. It's important to note that strength training fits into the general category of exercises. We're not trying to mimic the specific movement patterns seen in the competition field, and instead we're just trying to develop general force production, muscular hypertrophy, tendon strength, and just general qualities that we can then build upon later into more specific exercises. So this leads us into the video today. What are my favourite 6 exercises I like to incorporate into most athletic development programs, and what the rationale is for each one. The first exercise we're going to go over today is the front squat. So for me personally, I think the front squat trumps the back squat, which a lot of people may disagree with, but the purpose is for athletic populations is to develop a true squat pattern. The problem when you chuck a barbell on the back of an athlete is it shifts their centre of mass forward onto their toes. So if you've got an athlete that struggles with tight ankles or tight hips, and they especially aren't quite confident in the squat pattern, this is going to make it very difficult to demonstrate a true upright squat pattern. When we put the bar in front of an athlete, what it's going to do is shift the athlete's centre of mass further back, which in turn is going to allow them to sit down more vertically. And as a result, we get a nice, efficient squat pattern. We know from front squats in the world of Olympic weightlifting is obviously one of the most important exercises for them, but we all know that Olympic lifters have very explosive vertical jumps and just general explosive power in nature. So we know from this and from research that the front squat ticks off a lot of boxes from an efficient squat pattern. So one of the common complaints when it comes to the front squat is athletes getting sore wrists or struggling to keep their front rack open. So what this usually demonstrates is a lack of external rotation. And secondly, does the athlete actually have the bar in the correct shelf on the collarbone to be able to sit down? So this is a video that we can break down in a future video, but it's important to understand that if you are getting sore wrists, it's going to go down to either tight external rotation, just not being used to the movement, or you're struggling to sit vertically, which a heel raise could be another beneficial tool for the athlete to then be able to sit more upright. The other benefit with the front squat is if you can do an efficient front squat, it does mean that when you do choose to, say, potentially do a back squat later down the line, that transition to learn how to do the movement is a lot smoother and a lot more efficient. The second exercise we're going to go over today is the power clean, and specifically the block below the knee power clean. This ties into point 1, while being able to do an efficient front squat is going to help the power clean position. So often we see athletes try and do a power clean and they end up starfishing the weight, and the weight ends up going all into their wrists, and it just doesn't look like a very efficient and comfortable pattern with that. So by being able to do the front squat, it then transitions nicely into our power clean for developing explosive power. The reason why I also love the power clean is there's very few movements out there that we get a rapid force production, but also a rapid force absorption within a matter of milliseconds. The power clean ticks off so many boxes from a general athletic perspective, but also what it allows for is potential complexes to be done after that, to basically get a greater training economy and a greater training efficiency. What we can do is we can then turn the power clean into a push press, we can do it into a front squat, we can do it in from the hang, we can go from the floor. It just gives us so many different movement options from a programming perspective that just ticks off so many different boxes. Personally, I recommend when you're learning the power clean to perform the blocks. This is because every athlete's going to have different starting positions and are going to be at different heights when they're first learning how to do it. So if you've got a 6'6" athlete, trying to get them to pull from the floor might be really challenging. So setting up blocks at mid-thigh, at the knee, below the knee, is going to be a really efficient way to learn how to learn the movement safely and efficiently. The third exercise we're going to go over is the weighted chin-up. Now, I'm a big believer that the weighted chin-up is the king when it comes to pulling exercises, but it's also a real humbler for a couple of reasons. Firstly, if you're a heavier athlete or you're struggling with body composition issues, it's going to really humble you quickly as to get better at the chin-up movement. The second thing is I'm a big believer that the chin-ups are going to be very beneficial from a shoulder health perspective as long as you're going from a full range of motion and closing the elbow joint at the top. When programming for chin-ups and weighted chin-up variations, I like to include the athlete's body weight into any external load that the athlete's going to be doing. So whether that's weighted with a chain, a dumbbell, a med ball, etc. From there, we can then calculate our weighted chin-up just like we would with any other percentage-based loading. So for example, if an athlete weighs 80 kilograms and they're able to perform a 20 kilo chin-up, this is going to total to 100 kilo for their 1 rep max. From this 100 kilo, we can then prescribe percentage-based training to then progressively overload our chin-up movements. So if you're an athlete that's been struggling to progress through, try and see where your maximum lifts are, and then progressively overload as you progress through your training program. The fourth exercise we're going to go over today is the king of the posterior chain, and it's going to be the Romanian deadlift. Now, the Romanian deadlift is, in my opinion, one of the big bang for your bucks if you want to develop your glutes, hamstrings, and lower back strength, which we know is going to be critical for most athletic performance tasks. Now, the problem I see when performing the Romanian deadlift is athletes undershooting it. So they'll chuck on 60, 70, 80 kilo, perform it at the end of the session for a few reps. I'm a big believer in utilizing straps to get more out of the lift, and so that the grip strength doesn't become the limiting factor in the movement. So by performing the lift with straps, it means that we can overload the posterior chain, and we're going to get a much better stimulus for the lower body hinge pattern. So when using straps, very easy to use. What I like to do is one loop underneath, make sure it's nice and snug so the bar's locked into the grip there. Same thing on the other side. And as a result, this takes out the grip factor, and I can just purely focus on what I'm doing with my hips. So when I'm coaching the Romanian deadlift, I want to think about sticking my butt to the room behind me, and I'm trying to keep a fairly vertical shin. You can perform the movement as low as your mobility allows, and what you can keep a nice stable trunk. Go from there. The fifth exercise we're going to go over is the incline bench press. So a lot of people view the conventional bench press as the king of upper body pressing movements, and I definitely disagree with this. However, the problem is I find the incline bench slightly easier on the shoulders, and as a result we get a nice combination between a horizontal and a vertical press. When it comes to the incline bench, you can start to play around with different inclines. So personally, I actually prefer a bit of a lower incline, whether that's 15 to 30 degrees, which is going to allow you to push the weight a little bit further. However, you could easily go up to 45, which I'm going to show you in the demo as we go through from here. Here we have a 45-degree dumbbell incline bench. Very simple. Dumbbells on the knees. What I want to think about is using my legs to propel the dumbbells up to my shoulders. So from here, I'm just going to lean back, in position, press up, control the bar, keep the elbows tight, and drive up as we go through from here. When it comes to sets and reps for any incline work, I'm a big fan of performing 3 to 5 sets for 6 to 8 reps, and actually starting to push that movement a little bit. You can vary between dumbbells, you can vary between Swiss bar, we can vary between conventional barbells as well. So the variations within the lift itself is endless. The final exercise for the day is going to be the Bulgarian split squat. So the Bulgarian split squat ties in nicely to our front squat at the start and the Romanian deadlift that we've gone just before. For me, it's a fairly true single leg exercise. I believe from the research we're looking at sort of 80 to 85% load on that front leg, which is going to develop strengthen imbalances that develop over months and years of competition. But what we're also going to do is get a nice posterior chain through our glutes and our hamstrings as well. So for me, it sort of ties in nicely between our double leg work, and then we get some unilateral work that we can actually start to push some load through. So absolutely a big bang for your buck exercise with all those movements.